welcome board members and guests to the Wednesday, August 26, 2020 meeting of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Placer County Airport Land Use Commission, Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, and the Placer County Local Transportation Authority. We are conducting this meeting via teleconference under Executive Order N-29-20, approved by Governor Newsom on March 17th, 2020. We appreciate your participation and patience with this technology. A recording of this meeting will be posted to our website after the meeting. For public comment, there will be multiple opportunities throughout this meeting for public comment. When I open an item up for the public to comment on, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to speak and make a public comment on this item. If you're joining the webinar on your computer, you can do so by clicking the raise hand button on the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. If you're joining over the phone, you can do so by pressing *9, and PCTPA staff will then call out individuals who have raised their hand, giving them permission to speak one by one. When you are called, please state your full name and your city of residence. You will then have a maximum of 3 minutes to provide your public comment. PCTPA staff will notify you when your 3 minutes are up. If you experience any technical difficulties throughout this meeting, then we're going to ask you to please go ahead and email your comment to Sylvie Sable, our clerk, at ssabol@pctpa.net. For board action, because this meeting is being conducted via teleconference, all votes will be roll call votes. Board members, we ask that you state your name prior to making a motion or a second, just for the record. And once an item has been moved and seconded, we'll ask the clerk to please call a roll call vote. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask everybody if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sylvie, if you'd like to lead us.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
There we go.
Thank you. And quickly, before we get into the agenda, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Dan Wilkins. I want to take this opportunity to welcome Dan. He is our new public member on our board of directors. Dan comes to us from District 5 and the town of Truckee, where he is the public works director and town engineer. He's currently also acting as interim town manager for Truckee. Dan has a wealth of experience in transportation, both working for Truckee, who has some successful sales tax measures, and as Truckee's principal liaison with the Nevada County Transportation Commission, who are key transportation planning agencies. So welcome, Dan. Would you like to say anything before we get started on today's agenda?
Happy to be in with the rest of you fine ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dan. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and move into roll call. Sylvia, if you'd be so kind.
Allard.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Broadway.
Here.
Burris.
Here.
Holmes.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
Euler.
Here.
Wilkins.
Here.
All right, we will go ahead and move into item C, approval of the action minutes for the June 24th, 2020 meeting.
Holmes moves.
Broadway second.
Sylvie?
Allard. Baker.
Aye.
Broadway.
Yes.
Burris.
Aye.
Holmes.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Mackey.
Aye.
Euler.
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move to agenda review. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda order this morning?
So moved. Joyner.
Broadway was second.
Sylvie?
Allard, Baker,
Aye.
Allard, aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Beautiful. Moving to Public comment. Do we have any comments from the public lined up?
Madam Chair, I'm seeing no requests for public comment at this time.
All right, we will keep moving along then. Moving to the consent calendar for the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, F. Would anybody like to poll or discuss any items on the consent calendar, or do I have a motion to approve it as stands?
Holmes moves approval.
Euler second.
Sylvie?
Allard,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Mackey,
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Wonderful. And moving to item G, we're going to have a 9 a.m. public hearing for the Lincoln Regional Airport Layout Plan and Narrative Report Consistency Determination.
Good morning. David Melko has this item here. So we're asking the Airport Land Use Commission today to conduct a public hearing, and the recommendation of the staff report is for the ALUC to find the Lincoln Airport Layout Plan and Narrative Report consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, subject to the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan being updated to reflect the Airport Layout Plan. A brief PowerPoint presentation today that summarizes the staff report and the 4 attachments within the staff report. This slide here explains the Airport Land Use Commission's role. Perhaps we can have the next slide. Today, the Airport Land Use Commission has 3 choices. Find the Airport Land Use Airport Layout Plan, consistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, or consistent subject to conditions, or you would find it inconsistent based upon specific conflicts. Next slide. Location map, primarily for the viewing audience of where the Lincoln Regional Airport. Next slide. So the Airport Layout Plan and Narrative Report. The Airport Layout Plan is a legal requirement to obtain federal and state funding assistance. The Airport Layout Plan shows existing facilities as well as proposed development over a 20-year period. Lincoln's Airport Layout Plan was last updated in 2008. The Lincoln has a master plan which was approved in 2007. And the Airport Layout Plan basically serves as a planning tool to implement the master plan vision. Accompanying the Airport Layout Plan is a report. It's, Federal Aviation Administration characterizes as a narrative report and identifies the various goals and objectives and requirements for this specific airport layout plan, updates the aviation demand forecast that's shown in the airport's master plan, identifies preferred alternative, and also identifies a 20-year capital improvement program. This is also shown as attachment 2 in your staff report, and attachment 3 shows the airport layout plan over a development phasing period. There's 3 development phases over a 20-year period. Next slide. So when we look at the airport layout plan and we compare it to the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan in terms of consistency, the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan is based upon Lincoln's 2007 master plan. And the master plan projected that by year 2030, there would be slightly less than 400 based aircraft with about 138,000 operations. The airport layout plan, which updates the demand forecast, projects about 317 aircraft by 2030 and about slightly less than 82,000 operations. So on that basis there, most of the impacts that were identified with the airport master plan, and as the airport master plan was used as the basis for the airport land use compatibility plan, the impacts associated with this updated airport layout plan will be less. Next slide. So we have a timeline here in terms of when the city initiated this process. The city actually initiated this process, I think, going back to 2015, and then approached the FAA in 2016. And in June in 2020 here, the FAA had issued conditional approval. One of those conditions included updating the local land use plans to incorporate the airport layout plan, which we would be doing here as part of the airport land use compatibility plan update. And the city submitted the airport layout plan to PCTPA in July, and we are here today for a public hearing to determine its consistency. Next slide. So the staff report has 4 attachments, and the 4th attachment identifies the consistency review. And this checklist here summarizes that consistency review, and basically on 3 factors: noise, safety, and overflight. There are enough changes in terms of schedule and scope with the airport layout plan that they are conditionally consistent, and so we'll need to look at these 3 factors when we incorporate the airport land use, airport layout plan and the airport land use compatibility plan update. On airspace protection, there is no issue because there's no development proposed on the airport that will exceed height limitations. Next slide. And so this slide here summarizes in a little bit more detail the attachment 4. And as I noted, the airport land use compatibility plan is based on Lincoln's 2007 master plan, and the airport land use plan serves as a planning tool to implement that master plan. And when we compare the airport layout plan to the master plan, they're broadly similar. There are differences in terms of project details and schedule. And of course, that's to be expected because the airport layout plan here was just completed in 2020 and the master plan was completed in 2007. And so while the projects are the same, the schedules and phasing of those particular projects differs from the master plan. And when we look at the 4-factor evaluation, which is noise, safety, overflight compatibility, and airspace protection, we're basically concluding that the airport layout plan is conditionally consistent with the ALUCP. And we will look at noise, safety, and overflight compatibility. And with respect to safety, we will also look at wildlife hazards because Lincoln Airport is located in the Pacific Flyway, which is a bird migration route. Birds are not good around airports. And so with that, in terms of summarizing here, the FAA also, as part of their approval or conditional approval of the airport layout plan, conditions its acceptance upon the plan being incorporated into a local land use plan. Next slide. So as noted in the staff report, we're recommending that the airport layout plan and narrative report are consistent subject to the airport land use compatibility plan being updated to reflect these changes at the airport. Next slide. And so before you today, you conduct a public hearing. Board makes a recommendation or makes a finding on consistency determination. And then we would move forward, assuming a positive finding on the consistency determination to incorporate the airport layout plan into the airport land use compatibility plan update process. And next slide. And we're glad to take any questions from the board. Otherwise, I recommend you open the public hearing.
Great, thank you. Do we have any feedback from the board at this time? All right, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
As a reminder, any members of the public who would like to speak as part of this public hearing, you can do so by clicking the raise hand button or dialing *9 if you have called in.
All right, we'll give it a few minutes before I close the public hearing and we move it back to the board.
Madam Chair, I'm seeing no requests for public comment at this time.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move it back to the board for determination.
Joyner moves approval. Holmes
Allard
seconds.
Sylvie?
Okay, Allard,
Yes.
Baker, Baker,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
All right. On to item H, 2020 unmet transit needs process and schedule.
Good morning. So the year is flying by and we are already at unmet transit needs again. This morning's presentation is just an information item. I'll be back in October with the official public hearing. So for the purposes of our new board member, unmet transit needs is a statutory requirement because as a county with less than 500,000 people, our jurisdictions choose to utilize some writing in the local transportation fund that they can utilize those transit funds for streets and roads projects. But the requirement is that we do outreach every year to make sure that there are no unmet transit needs. Beginning with last year, PCTPA has conducted a 2-month outreach process in September and October. And for the last few years, we've been relying primarily on online survey and social media outreach, which of course works well given the COVID environment that we are in. Given the changes in requirements with regards to gathering, we won't be conducting any in-person workshops. There will be a formal public hearing at the October PCTPA board meeting. I'm working with Nevada County Transportation Commission, Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and the TNT-TMA. Transportation Management Association, Tahoe. I'm not sure what all those letters are, but anyway, I'm working with them and we're going to conduct some sort of online virtual version of an unmet transit needs workshop to help meet all those needs of folks who live up in the Tahoe region. I'll be working with city and county PIOs and your supervisor district aides to get the word out about this survey, which will open September 1st and close October 31st. And like I said, I'll be back at the October board meeting with more results from the outreach process. But I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
All right, do we have any questions from the board? All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Madam Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
All right, back to the board. If no one else has anything else, then we will go ahead and proceed forward to the next item. All right, moving to item I, revenue projections, overall work program, OWP amendment process for the 2022 funding strategy resources.
Morning, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Directors. This morning, we wanted to bring to you the processes we have laid out for operating under a limited resource or constrained resources due to the effects of COVID-19 and their impacts on the economy on moving forward with our sorry, my Bluetooth is acting up a bit here, so apologies if that interrupts my presentation. But anyway, we wanted to outline this process to talk about updated revenue projections leading into our regular amendment of our overall work plan that we do in the October timeframe, our first amendment, and then how that affects the board's direction to proceed with a 2022 funding outreach strategy. So as you know, we went through the OWP process for our first OWP, and that projected a very conservative 20% reduction in local transportation funds, or LTF funds. The board adopted that budget, and since that time, we've been working with our local jurisdictions, the state controller's office, and our sales tax consultant, HDL, to track our progress along those lines. And it appears to be at least prudent at this time to be operating in that environment of a 20% reduction. However, that places fairly severe constraints on the way that we implement our overall work plan, and therefore we wanted to outline a very methodical step-by-step process on how to come back to you with an amendment this fall, as again we regularly plan. And so our plan at this point is to bring a update of revenues, having the data that we regularly obtain from the state controller's office with STA, with LTF and other resources, and bring that together with a data and projections for the second quarter of 2020. And have HDL make a presentation at the September board meeting. Based upon those revenue projections, we would then update our OWP and bring that back to you in the October timeframe. At the same time, at that October meeting, we will bring back to you a plan for implementation of a 2022 funding outreach strategy for a potential sales tax measure. And so we wanted to just outline that process here today. In terms of the sales tax measure, again, we are assuming a more limited resource arrangement, and we've been working with our partners in a South County district measure, which is what we project right now, albeit we will go back and look at the potential for a countywide measure. But under the environment of a district, we went to Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, and the county, and through their city managers and their public works directors, and identified sorry, again, my Bluetooth's acting up. So outlined a process of which they could contribute revenue out of their LTF, potentially, for putting together enough resources for an effort. We spent roughly about $2 million on the 2020 effort, and we have at least preliminarily put together a plan of about $1.4 million to $1.6 million, again, pending these revenue projections. So putting together a plan, at least at this point, which we will refine based upon these revenue projections, refine based upon our overall work plan, and bring to you also in October. So again, we wanted to bring this process to you here at the August meeting to get any feedback from you as the board, and identify any concerns and see if we're headed in the right direction. So with that, I'll conclude my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, and any questions from our board? All right, seeing none, I guess we will go ahead and move into public comment, if anyone from the public has any comments on this item.
Madam Chair, there's one member of the public who would like to make a comment on this item.
All right.
Well, good morning, board members. I'm Mike Arabedian with Placer County Tomorrow, and simply want to comment that I think the amount of funding and staff time spent trying to get a measure on the ballot. All of the surveys after surveys after surveys it should be spent for a better purpose. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public at all?
There is no additional public comment at this time.
All right, if I have nothing else from the board, we can go ahead and move into the executive director's report. All right, Mike, take it.
Is that an action item?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll move
yes.
approval of the revenue projections report.
I'll second. Broadway will second.
Colby?
Okay. Allard,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Perez,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Joyner,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
Wilkins,
Yes.
All right, now that we've put the cart back behind the horse, Mike, you want to go ahead?
Sure. And before I get started on just an update of a number of things related to our work plan, I just wanted to mention that we actually, it's unusual, but we have an item after this item, which is related to our discussion about in-person meetings. So there'll be a report following my report that I'll also do. So I wanted to update you really fast on some key things that we're working on. Again, our staff has been working back in the office for the last couple months, working because of the configuration of our office space, working in our private offices, not open to the public, and also not taking any meetings outside of meetings done by Zoom or other video conference capabilities. But overall, we are doing well and accommodating certainly flexibility that we need to do with our staff in terms of schools and other family issues and complications caused by COVID-19. So we've been accommodating of our staff and been able to do that with relatively minor adjustments. So some of the things that we've been working really hard on while back in the office and sometimes through telecommuting are a number of activities that I just wanted to highlight. Probably the biggest effort by our staff over the last few months has been working on our SB1 competitive grant applications. As you know, these are very difficult and very large-scale funding applications that we've had to put together because we, in part, do not have the luxury of being a self-help county and having a sales tax measure to back up some of our projects. So we've had to get very, very creative and also combine our efforts with many of the jurisdictions in the Northwest Sacramento County and Placer County area in order to bring these to even a possibility of being funded. And so we've been working very hard on a program called the Solutions for Congested Corridors grant program, where we put together a multi-agency grant approach with roughly about 14 public agencies that we've been working with and put together some projects. I'll just, again, mention some of the ones that affect Placer County. Those include the Lincoln to Hospital to light rail bus line that includes eastbound auxiliary lanes along Interstate 80 and the Dry Creek, the next phase of the Dry Creek Trail system, which, as you know, is part of our new comprehensive trail system, which would give us eventually someday a trail system which rivals that of the American River Bike Trail, albeit on the north side of the Sacramento Valley. So very, very key projects, and we're very hopeful. We've been ranked fairly high by Caltrans, who is a partner agency, in terms of their statewide applications, and thus we are hopeful to receive funding for that program. The sister application that we've also submitted is under the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. That one is a little more difficult in order to obtain funding for, but that project we're combining forces with Sacramento County and Caltrans. Our key project in that application is the westbound auxiliary lanes along Interstate 80, combined with some projects that enhance goods movement in and around the Sacramento International Airport and the Metro Air Park development project adjacent to the airport. So we don't rank as high in that application process, but we may be, Caltrans and the state have an ability maybe to fund a longer list of projects into that corridor program. So we're working very hard to see if we can get that grant application funded as well. But just to highlight, it would be, I wouldn't say it'd be easier, but it would be more advantageous, and we'd be in a better position if we had a self-help county in place where we had additional revenue to back up our grant applications, and hopefully that's the case in the future. Somewhat related to that, we actually have a new member of the California Transportation Commission, as you know, that is from Placer County. As you know, in the past, Jim Arp was our local representative from Roseville and was very helpful in our pursuit of funding in the past. The governor has appointed a new representative from the city of Rockland, John Rocco Davis, who is a representative of the labor community. And next week, Councilman Broadway and myself are going to be going down to meet with Mark Watts, our state lobbyist, and Mr. Davis to discuss Placer County's efforts in transportation. Another item to mention, again, very important, is we've just started a process where we have begun to sit down with our transit agencies in the county, our Auburn, Placer County, and Roseville Transit to discuss what we term reinventing transit and looking at our short-range transit plan and the COVID crisis and seeing if there are some things that we can implement here to modify transit from its current configuration, where we had problems pre-COVID with ridership, except for our commuter services that were very well ridden. So trying to sit down with our transit agencies and see if there's some alternatives to our standard way of operating in order to increase ridership and position our transit routes better to in this very different environment under COVID and then post-COVID. So we'll be meeting over the next few months with these staffs and discussing various topics on and coming back to you at some point with a game plan in terms of implementation of changes to transit, as well as the respective member jurisdictions who will be intimately involved in this effort as well. Last couple things I wanted to mention is we are in the, and this is on the SPARTA side of things, which is we do have a SPARTA meeting after this meeting, but I think for those members who are not on SPARTA, it bears mention that we are in the process of doing a very large update to the South Placer traffic model. It's something we haven't done in a number of years, as well as updating the Tier 1 and Tier 2 SPARTA fee programs. That is a very key program because what it will do is not only will it help our member agencies in having a traffic model which is more robust and more attuned to traffic conditions at this point in time, but it will also aid in our potential 2022 funding strategy as an educational tool for both internal and external communications. And so we just received a number of proposals under that program and are going to be coming back to the SPARTA board for a contract, and that process will take a couple years, but it'll be very key to our implementation of our work program here at PCTPA. The last quick item I wanted to mention is a smaller project, but a very, very important project that SACOG is kicking off. They received a rural planning grant program to help commercial corridors in our in some of our rural communities. And so we're going to be working closely with SACOG staff to implement some commercial corridor and community event types of programs in the towns of Loomis and Colfax, and also in Meadow Vista as well. So we'll be assisting SACOG with that effort. Again, we're by no means the lead agency for this, but a key part of that program, and we'll bring back updates to that as things happen. There is actually a very key meeting tonight up in Meadow Vista, where some of SACOG's community resource consultant team is going to be making a presentation to the Meadow Vista community on looking at enhancing their commercial corridor that they have in their community. So with that, I will wrap up Executive Director's report and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, do we have any questions from the board at all? All right, seeing none, we can go ahead and see if the public has anything they'd like to throw in here.
Madam Chair, I'm seeing no public comment on this item.
Okay, great. So we can go ahead and move into the next item, which is board direction to staff. And the one item that we do have on this today is just discussing whether or not we are looking to move back to in-person.
So, Madam Chair and members of the board, we, as you know, are meeting in this wonderful Zoom environment, and we have been and working in accordance with the governor's order, as was outlined at the beginning of our meeting, and this is the environment that has worked relatively well. We've actually gotten a lot of kudos from some of our member agencies and other associated agencies on how well we run the Zoom meetings. So it has worked well, albeit it's just not the same as, you know, an in-person meeting. And so what we did at some of our board members' requests was take a look at the feasibility of moving back to in-person meetings. And we had a discussion with the chair and the vice chair, in fact, about this meeting, and came to the conclusion that we just weren't ready yet to do that. And really what it boils down to with our board is we actually have a very large board. In fact, one of the largest board of directors in the county, with 9 members. And so when looking at different facilities, we do not have the luxury of having a chambers that would be suitable for under the COVID requirements for distancing and other items. We don't have a facility which really is suitable well to that. If you could advance to the next slide. So this is you all in your normal configuration in the chambers at the Board of Supervisors. And as you can see, we're squeezed in there pretty darn tight. And certainly this is pre-COVID, and you know, we weren't even coming close with you as the board of the 6 feet of social distancing. And this chambers works well, as do all other chambers, for 5 persons. If you could go to the next slide. So with the County Board of Supervisors, and this is a picture of them operating in the new COVID environment, you know, for 5 members, it works really well. And you know, even some of our other member jurisdictions, if you could advance to the next slide, with the city of Roseville in their council chambers, which is probably the most technologically advanced chambers we have in the county. It's suitable for 5 or maybe 6 members if you include the clerk and the city manager. Next slide. And the city of Rockland with their traditional chambers that they were using. They've now moved to the event center, but they really just are not suited for 9 members. And so if you advance to the next slide, so Rockland has now moved into an environment where they're meeting in the Rockland Event Center, which certainly can accommodate a larger level of activity in terms of board members and the like, but the setup requirements for a small agency like PCTPA would be relatively large. We don't have a public works or maintenance staff to be able to set this up on a regular basis. So if you go on to the next slide, we even took a look at, well, what are some other options we have? And out at Cedra or out at the Community Development Building out in the DeWitt Center, the Planning Commission chambers have a much larger venue, but albeit it's still not designed for 9 persons. And so we could do something in this area, but as you can see, there's still a small dais, and we would have to put members somewhat in an awkward position of being in the audience. Where these arrows are indicated is actually where the Ag Commission, who met in these chambers, placed persons in order for that to meet. And that makes things a little trickier for participation and for video and the like to implement. So in conclusion, staff is recommending that at least through the end of this calendar year, that we remain in the Zoom virtual environment. To some degree, it's and not only us, but other areas or other public bodies. Sometimes we get a little more public participation because people don't have to travel as far to our meetings. But again, it's just not the same. But we wanted to bring this item forward to you and get your input and allow you to have a discussion about this, and then make a decision whether to continue on at least through the calendar year, and then revisit this item at the end of the year to see how we move forward, given where we are at with COVID. So with that, I'll conclude if you have any questions.
Yeah, at this time, do we have anybody from the board who, is strongly in favor of coming back in person or strongly in favor of remaining on Zoom? Because I think we should kind of go from there and address outward.
The word strongly is probably going too far for me, but I think it's a wise decision to plan on going with a Zoom meeting through the end of the year. If we find conditions change along the way, we can always adjust. I strongly suspect our newest member, Dan, would very much appreciate not having to come down the hill every month. But I think it's wise to stay with the plan, to stay within the Zoom environment through the end of the year. I think we'll probably be doing the same with the city council meetings in Lincoln as well.
I really would like to meet the rest of you sooner rather than later, but you're right that the commute each way this definitely helps me out. What I would be curious about is if we go back to in-person meetings, whether or not having the option of board members remote in would remain.
We certainly
Mike,
can.
would you talk about that?
We certainly can investigate that. Again, it's I think some agencies have found that to a certain degree it enhances public participation, because people don't have to, especially with a county-wide agency like ourselves, it doesn't or it actually promotes that. So we'll look into a hybrid, if you will, of Zoom. It certainly, I think a hybrid was not really an option when we kind of first started this, but I think the county's audiovisual IT staff have really got the Zoom hybrid approach dialed in for the Board of Supervisors. So I think at least at this point in time, it's certainly a possibility, but we'll investigate it more. So.
Yeah, and Mike, I'd be really interested to kind of hear that because, I know that there's definitely people out there that would prefer to attend in person, to a certain degree, although the Zoom is convenient. I do appreciate the in-person attendance. So if there's anything we can do to investigate that further, I'd be very interested to hear more.
Sure, be happy to.
Hey, Mike, if I may, I do concur with the comment by Mayor Joyner in relationship to, being strong in my feelings. I absolutely would like to see us get together in person. I think there's a benefit of that, but I would also encourage you to reach out to the team that manages the Consolidated Oversight Board meetings. We have in our meetings, because we cover the entire county, we have always incorporated the ability for board members to participate online. And so you may want to check with them in relationship to how they coordinate that inclusion. And we use the supervisors, the domes, and the supervisors, the boardroom. So it does have the capability, and I think we could easily incorporate that.
Yeah, the county's all set up for that already. Just a couple meetings ago, Supervisor Euler called in from Idaho, wherever he was, and it was kind of nice, actually.
Thank you. Love you too, but
All right, so it sounds like generally, the consensus from the board is we want to look more into this hybrid format. It doesn't sound like anybody's strongly pushing for us to just, go full in and go straight back to in person. I prefer the hybrid, I think, just because it gives people more options. And I think as we move forward out of this whole COVID situation, if we could look to how we could make these meetings more accessible for people, I think that's for the best. So, maybe it's a good experiment in the right direction. All right, well, if we have no further comments from the board on this item, it sounds like staff has pretty clear direction, I think. Mike, clarify if you don't feel that we do.
No, I think we do. We would just, have you kind of move the recommended action as enclosed in the staff report then.
All right, do I have a motion to have staff move forward with a looking into a hybrid option?
Holmes moves approval.
Allard seconds.
All right, Selby?
Allard,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris,
Aye.
Holmes,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
All right. So last thing we have here is a few informational items. Just to clarify with staff, we don't have any pending public comments, do we, at this time?
I'm sure there's no public comment at this time.
Okay, wonderful. Well, in that case, we're going to go ahead and move to adjournment. Our next public meeting is going to be on Wednesday, September 23rd at 9 a.m. And we will keep posted about how we will be conducting that meeting.
And Madam Chair and members of the board, for those of you that are on Sparta, we do have a gap today in terms of when the Sparta meeting starts. So the Sparta meeting will start at 10:45. So go ahead and log out of this meeting, and then we'll see you in about an hour.
All right, thanks everybody.